Buenas queridas, we made it back to another season of the BEAM&Flow podcast. I'm your host, Chloé, and we are in season 11 of the show all around aligning your body, energy, awareness, movement, and bringing all of that into flow. So this season, we are talking about perspective shifts, vision shifts, and we're looking at it from all kinds of angles, from the physical angle of your actual vision, from an emotional and energetic perspective. We're looking at it from how your perspective will shift as a business owner, as an entrepreneur. And then we are getting into some really vulnerable shares from me around deep perspective shifts over the past few months. So I'm so excited to share this season with you, and let's kick it off with Ana Pereira. Oh, hold on, my cat just went up to my ancestor altar. They don't want you up there. They don't want you up there, baby. They like their water. They don't need the cat hair in the water. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate your energy. Every once in a while, Kaya likes to make herself known as part of these podcast recordings. Like, hey, hey, hey.
Really?
Yes.
She pops into the screen?
She does. She will occasionally pop in. Not so much since I moved into this house and I'm no longer doing them on my couch. Then she was like all over the couch, and now that I'm in a chair, she just kind of walks in and wants to make sure that I know that she's aware that something is happening in this room. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm really excited to get started with my friend Ana. And Ana, I've never actually, I always say your last name Pereira because I'm saying it like Spanish, but how do you pronounce your last name?
It's Portuguese from my dad's from the Azores. So in Portuguese they say Pereira, the EI.
Pereira. Okay.
I've lived in the US my entire life, and I've always said Pereira, as has my family.
Okay.
It
Great.
seems to be easier for people, although challenging to spell.
I'm familiar with the making the name palatable and easier for folks, for sure. Um, so I have known Anna for, well, I mean, I've known you peripherally for about a year and a half, but I've like known you and worked with you one on one for maybe 6 months. Um, and I have been so profoundly changed by your work, even in the few, I think 3 or 4 sessions that we've done together. Um, and I'm also blessed enough to be in a space where I get to hear from you more often than the average person as well. So I'm I don't even know, like, you're a knowledge bringer. You're a teacher. Like, I don't want to use any of the typical words that people would associate with someone who does client work in the way that you do, um, because it's not like anything anyone else does. And uh, yeah, I think I want to hear how you would explain what you do to people who have no idea who you are.
The $1 million question. Every time I answer the question, what do I do? The answer is different. And the more I've become truly me, who I am and what I do is an intricate me. If I needed to word it, I would say that I help others become, discover, and remember their true nature, who they purely, truly are, We all have our true nature. It's what's always been there and also what's always evolving into something new. And in order to do that, in order to become our true nature, each of us must also look at the places in us that aren't really us. And that requires healing. I'm not a healer. I don't identify as a healer. However, I help facilitate people's healing processes, which often are a lot of unwinding. And I do so, say, working with the field of truth and with benevolence and with source and what a person needs in a very precise right next step. So this work is very surgical. It's very precise in what an individual, including myself when I'm working on myself or how I live my life, needs in every moment that's going to bring the most benefit without detriment.
Yeah, it is very precise. Um, it is extremely precise, and I'll provide some context as someone who has worked with you. This isn't like well, I can't speak for other, I don't know how other people approach this work with you, but for myself, I wasn't coming to you with like, um, am I gonna meet my partner in the next 6 months? Like it's not like, um, a futuristic reading in, although the future sometimes comes up. It's more about unwinding what is masking the truth of who you are, and like you said, what your right next step is. So if the first time that we worked together, I was not sure exactly where I was moving. I was thinking maybe maybe I was going to be moving soon, and then it happened very soon, and then that fell apart. And so I've kind of checked in with you all along this journey of moving into this space that I am right now. And one of the tools that you work with, and you also teach, I mean, I knew how to do it, but you would also teach me if I needed to, is muscle testing. And I have used muscle testing for a long time, and I'm really curious about how you use it. And if you would say to someone who's starting to work with muscle testing for themselves, like, what are there do's and don'ts? Are there ways it is supportive? Are there ways that it's not maybe so clear? How can, yeah.
But yeah, okay. Well, I was introduced to muscle testing maybe 4 or 5 years ago, mostly through other practitioners using muscle testing for food and supplements. And admittedly, I had my skepticism around muscle testing, and I wondered if it could work for me. I had my limiting beliefs will say that, oh, I can't do that. That it just tests wrong. How do I know I'm not changing the answer, programming the answer? I know that those can be common concerns from a person approaching muscle testing that I completely resonate with. And it really was when I met my dear, dear friend, Tria, and colleague who mentored me in muscle testing, and I saw what she could do with it, that I said, I want that. My truth bell rang, and I knew that there was something there. By that, I mean the skill set to also access the information that I need. And as someone who's been a lifelong learner, and we can say has lived many lives in this current life, a lot of different careers and jobs and moving and traveling and studying, I've consistently looked for truth. Like, what's the best diet? What's the best exercise? How do I heal myself? Who's the best practitioner? What's the best job for me? Like, what should I be doing? What's my purpose? These questions getting deeper and deeper into who am I? Who am I not? How do I get this information and know its truth? And finally, here was a way to develop my own relationship with truth, which isn't static, it's not a fact. Truth is all information that exists. But now, how we use it to change ourselves for the better, that's an upward truth. So, what is muscle testing? Let's first lay out the foundations. Typically, you're using fingers. Some people use their body, arms. There's a lot of different ways to do the test. Essentially, I'm going to speak from testing with myself versus a practitioner-client type of relationship. So if I'm asking a question, I'm then receiving the answer through my body and nervous system. There's a body-mind integration that's happening. So one of the very first things to do with learning muscle testing is really learning how to program. You have to program your nervous system to answer your questions. And at the basis, that takes reps. Okay. I'm not going to get into the technicalities on your podcast because I think there's a lot of places a person can go to get those. Mm-hmm. So I'll talk more about principles here. Well, there's a framework that I've learned muscle testing through with TRIA, and it's called ARIRA: ask, receive, interpret, register, and apply. Really, this framework can and ideally should be used for any sort of questioning. Okay, in that learning first how to ask the right questions, quality questions, and knowing where you're asking the question to. So the biggest mistake I see, one of them in muscle testers, both beginner to advanced, is they're not clear on where they're asking the question and where they're getting the information. So when I talk about the field of truth, it's unfathomably, immeasurably big because it's all information that's ever existed and its potential. So it's not about asking in this big, like, oh, here's the field. You want to be very particular where you want to get information. So a lot of people use muscle testing, especially at the beginning, for body stuff. Okay, what supplement to have, for example. So you're asking your body the question. And you have to understand how to ask the right question. Is this supplement going to be beneficial for my body right now? Is this going to be detrimental for my body right now? And I can ask the question in multiple ways to check and balance. And I'm going to be, especially at the beginning for a person who's learning, very precise with the language I use and the time I'm asking. Hence how I said right now. Because maybe that supplement was beneficial yesterday, but I want to know right now. Maybe I want to get that information about yesterday, and I want to be specific. So there is a lot of, we'll say, precision and using the scientific method here. And then we get into, let's say, the receiving end. That's the ability to listen, to allow. So one of my biggest hurdles in muscle testing has frequently been really good at reaching into the field, but then also learning how to allow and receive and to really be in stillness. So that's a big piece of the receiving. The information's there, it's available, but how good are you at receiving it? And then there's the interpreting piece. That's probably going to be the biggest hurdle for most people, because now we're talking about receiving information that's not in English, whether I'm getting information from my body or from my mind or whatever it may be. It's not coming at me in English. I need to be able to tune in and interpret while translating into the English language, whether for myself or for a client. So that takes time, learning how to interpret, and then registering and applying. It's more self-explanatory. Registering it, okay, comprehending, okay, and then actually applying the information given. One thing I can say about working with the field of truth is that if you receive truth and you squander it, that's you lose access. The more you are on this path and this journey of upward development and advancement with truth, it really is a privilege. You get more access. So the other final piece I'd say, I see a lot of people making the mistake, is they think they can ask whatever. Okay, here's the keys of the kingdom, and then they start trying to ask a bunch of questions. There's checks and balances, and you want to make sure that, let's say that one understands that there's a journey to the say accessibility.
Yeah. I'm thinking of a couple of different instances where I was using muscle testing in various ways, and I'm thinking back in my memory, I'm like, oh, yeah, I was still pretty young in my development of of myself and living an aligned life. But when I first learned about it, I learned using a pendulum, and it was the questions I was asking were, I was with my girlfriend and we were asking, okay, should we text this guy, or is he going to text us, or like things like that, like. And then it became like, oh, we did it for everything, like, oh, should we go out to this restaurant, and was this the right, like, all of these ways of seeking out justification for something that I was going to do or wanted to do anyway. Really, at that point, that's kind of, if I'm looking back at, like, well, he kept telling me to text him. Like, well, it was more than likely reading my own energy of, like, well, she's going to do it, so this is going to this is going to happen. And then I stepped away from that and from living my life that way, over a process of time. And then I started using muscle testing through my body, various points, either on my wrist or like my body moving forward and backward. And I felt really clear on using my body moving forward and back. And I felt really clear on how I was using it and the reasons why. And I was no longer using it as a means of justification. And I remember I was at a retreat and we were doing a cacao ceremony at the end. And when I was living in Mexico, I could have cacao every day and I was fine. But since I got back to the States, I noticed that I was having like a candida, pelvic pain, inflammatory reaction when I would have cacao. And so I asked my body if, I think it was a statement, this cacao does not inflame me. And I got a yes, that it would not inflame me. So I took it, and within 10 minutes, I was in writhing pain. Like, I was laying down on the floor while everybody else was in circle. And I remember being like, but I muscle tested. I got a yes. And And I've muscle tested on other things since then and been very clear, and it was all made sense and got the answers that turned out to be exactly what I needed. But I'm curious what comes up for you when I give those two very different examples and very different places of the journey.
Well, one, the way you framed your question, inflamed, doesn't necessarily mean it wasn't detrimental in another way. Used one mechanism of response, not that inflammation is also, sometimes inflammation is beneficial in an acute necessary response by the body, sure. So I would frame the question, do I have openings to drink this cacao right now? That's how I would. Openings referring to, is my intestinal cells able to, and therefore my body able to digest this without metabolic burden? Is this going to be detrimental to me? Would be another catch-all way. And by me, body. Be very clear with body when you're talking about body stuff, because the other piece is that there probably was a self, which I'm happy to get into what those are. So some sort of a program that wanted to run of why you wanted to drink that cacao in that circle right then. So really the biggest thing I see about muscle testing, and not just muscle testing, a lot of other modalities where people are using subtle perception and faculties as well, is that their programming gets in the way. So the biggest hurdle of really working with the field of truth is knowing, again, who you are and what you're asking and what you need, and caring so much about the truth, you care about nothing more than the truth. Yeah. But if there's partiality or bias, it can shift the test. So what creates partiality and preferences? These programs, mostly created when we're young. Why a person likes something, dislikes something, wants something, there's strategies to try to get something fulfilled in that moment based upon a need that they needed fulfilled in the past. It's essentially what most programs are about. Okay. So food is pretty difficult for people to learn muscle testing on, because so many people have so much tied to food, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Programs that run, I want to eat that food because it's going to make me feel comfortable. But that's the self. That's not what your body actually needs for nourishment at that time. Hence that I thou exchange, very important question. And I would say the groundwork, not just to muscle test, but to become your true nature, is to learn how to disengage with these detrimental, we'll say, algorithms and programs that may be running. For most people, most of the time, running automatically and not consciously.
Yeah. I mean, I know that if I asked you to, we could be here literally for days talking about algorithms and selves, and we could dive in on any one of these phrases because there's a lot to all of them. And so maybe it would be helpful for us to dissect a little bit of what you mean when you say algorithms and selves that are running. And maybe within the context of I have heard you say that it is possible to be done with healing, in that it's possible to get to that place in this life. And I'm curious if that's true for everyone, or if that's contingent on this other piece of the question about selves and algorithms that are running. Like, does everybody have the potential to actually be fully healed, or do we are there algorithms that are so deep in some people that are running that there's no way of unraveling that algorithm in this lifetime?
Okay, multi-pronged question. Let me consider how to approach. Well, first, yes, I go on the record of saying you can be completely done with healing. I am. And I suggest taking time out of the equation. When we talk about these very big, I hesitate to use the word goal, we'll say thresholds of becoming, best to take time out of the equation. So I did not approach healing in, I need to get this done in a year. Now, before I go into the healing piece, I want to also address what you talked about. No, there are no algorithms so deep that a person can't disengage from them in this life. Everyone's journey is going to look different and nuanced, and there are a lot of pieces to what may make that journey difficult for one person versus another. And I would also say that the groundwork for healing is to disengage from these detrimental algorithms. Not all are, by the way. We run beneficial and neutral ones. I'm driving my car. I have selves, which is basically a type of algorithm for anyone who understands algorithm, and I'm not a computer engineer. It's a sequence of code that says, if this, then that. So you're driving your car. If the car in front of you brakes, then you brake. It's a small example of a way that a sequence can work. I'm not trying to not use that.
Right.
There are ways that this is beneficial for our efficiency and our brain power and so much more. So when I mostly speak about selves and algorithms in the context of healing and becoming the true you, I'm talking about the detrimental stuff that says if they look at me that way, then they must hate me and I'm going to be alone. That's kind of algorithms running in a lot of people. These algorithms that get triggered by smells and looks and syntax of language and different types of relational exchanges because of how a person experienced reality when they were young, conception into puberty, when so much of this software is being created. Again, some of it really helpful, some of it not at all. In fact, detrimental and outdated. Because if you're trying to get something you need right now fulfilled with a such strategy that didn't even work when you were 3, it's not going to work very well now. It's going to perpetuate more of the same unfulfillment and absence and fear. Most of these detrimental algorithms are perpetuating the very fears they're trying to avoid. I don't want to be alone. I don't want to lose connection. So in this argument, what I'm going to do is get defensive and XYZ, which does not foster connection. So when we talk about healing, when I talk about healing, I define healing probably different than a lot of people do.
How do you define healing?
It's when healing is changing. It's changing and deconstructing, disidentifying, breaking down, detoxing, even letting go of all the stuff that isn't really you, that at one point you resonated with, but you've got to let go if you want to become someone better. And it's hard. because the disidentification process with who you thought you were, for a lot of us, it's going to feel like a dying process, because it is. It's the discontinuation of what was for what actually is.
I can imagine, and maybe at times I've thought this myself, that there are people listening to this who have, maybe unconsciously, the belief that when they are fully healed, they will inevitably be living the fullness of the life that they want or that they desire. And I don't assume to know you. I would imagine there are still things in life that you desire to experience. And I'm curious what you would say to that belief.
Mm-hmm. Well, that also comes with the presumption that because something is complete, now there's an end, as if what is a person going to do when they no longer have to heal? By the way, I had to look at that limiting belief. A person, a being, continues to expand and evolve, of which there will be challenges still, and even suffering. But there's not this deconstructing of all of these identities, of these algorithms, of this stuff that a person's been carrying for a very long time. There are levels, and they are ongoing levels of homeostasis, levels of fulfillment, except fulfillment's a process. The Buddhists are really good at naming that. If you think that you'll be happy when blank, you're missing the point. The fulfillment's in the process of becoming you, in union with Source, sovereignly you. So there's this linear thing of like, oh, if it's all fulfilled, then the cup can drain. No, it can keep expanding and overfilling. Yes, I still have many becomings that I'm working towards, but I wouldn't say they're the desires and preferences of software. It's in a very long trajectory way. Personally, I don't time frame my life to Ana in this life. I don't really think like that anymore. Everything I'm pointed at is something I work towards, whether I'm in this current life as Ana or not. Very different perspective. People do get fixated and stuck in the loop of healing. I agree. Looking for what's wrong with them, looking for something to fix. But I didn't say healing was fixing. A lot of it is also a remembering and a resolution. It's resolving the unresolved shit that's been looping.
I want to kind of tie this back into not exactly muscle testing, but when we've worked together, I've noticed that maybe not every time, but almost every time that we muscle test on something and there is evidence that I would like to be changed, that there's usually a statement that you'll give me or we'll come to together that I will say, as I would imagine is part of the integration process that you were referring to. And I would imagine that it's almost like a sandwiching of getting clear through muscle testing on what's congruent or not congruent. And then providing the resolution to that? And is that always necessary, and is it a really integral part of the movement through healing and towards continued expansion?
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Please.
Is what always necessary?
Thank you. Is the statement.
Oh,
Is finding a statement.
I'll start there. It's a tool in the toolbox. And before I get into what statements are, because I imagine your audience is wondering, let me back up in how I approach a healing process. And when people are coming to me in a session, typically they're coming with symptoms. Very common, right? We have symptom that arises, physical symptom, back pain, rash, skin rash, emotional symptom, recurring sadness, depression, anger, mental symptom, arguing with spouse, they're going to betray me, they're trying to control me. They may not be aware that those dynamics are running, but once a person becomes aware, they're pretty obvious. Okay, so that's a symptom. And a symptom is a gateway into deeper healing. So most people, as we've been conditioned in society and our culture, they look away. For her Tria put this really nice, well, even as little kids, they get hurt. Ow, I don't want to look at it. Stop touching it. Whereas the symptom, we look at it with the willingness to reveal and the readiness to move forth the gate into a deeper healing process. The symptom's not the problem. It's a sign that there's something there. There's something available. There's something going on that may be unresolved. So you come to me, or anyone comes to me in a session, and you have symptoms. And here's my secret. I ask you certain things. We have a conversation that I know is going to open files in you around that symptom. And when those files are open and our attention is there and your attention is there, that provides the opportunity for healing, because that's where your attention is right now. Now, this is what I meant by the surgical precision. I'm never going to open something that isn't ready to be open, that isn't ready to be resolved. That's where a lot of healing goes south. Either it's a Band-Aid and it's superficial and it's masking and it's not really actually getting to the root, or it's trying to get somewhere when the person's not ready, or it's out of the wrong order. Okay, so if a file is being open, okay, you're ready for some resolution here at some degree, maybe completely. Okay. Side note, you could have, let's say, a dynamic or a theme that you're working on resolving. For example, around the topic of control, very common for people, fear of being controlled. That's probably going to be in many files. You may do some resolution and healing in one file. It may come up in another zip file of sorts that then opens up more work to potentially do, more processes to go through and complete. Okay. Now, when you mention congruency or incongruency, for those who might be wondering, how do I talk about congruencies? We could say a congruency is a pre-established condition that you have with life. This is the way life is. So what you are, or any person is congruent with, is what they're going to experience their reality as, for better or worse. That often, almost always will say at the core of healing is changing congruencies towards something better, becoming more congruent with being available to love, with being available to source, with health. Because I can say most people, they're going to say they want those things. They want to be healthier, happier, they want peace, they want to know their purpose, Yet, why is the average person repeating habitual behaviors that take them degrees away from those things? Congruencies. They may want to be healthy, but they're congruent with eating XYZ at midnight. Why? Because it's a strategy that some part of them, usually not consciously, thinks is fulfilling something that they think they need. Comfort, as an example. So we need to change the congruency there in that little instance so that they can become more congruent with health. And incongruent, not congruent with thinking that the ice cream is going to provide the close comfort that they need. Because yes, we need comfort and we need understanding, but not from ice cream. Okay. So statement, it's a tool. A statement is when I ask your system what's needed next, statement's going to come up. And it's usually going to be something like, I'll use a simple one for the sake of this podcast. I survived endings. You're working around a theme and maybe endings. And your system, your software, the way that you're perceiving reality in that file right now thinks it hasn't survived endings. So, well, obviously you survived. Here you are. So let's get you congruent with that. So statements are used as a tool to create more congruency with what's right for you.
Yeah. It reminds me a little bit of this practitioner that I worked with 7 years ago after a very bad breakup. And I've talked about this on the podcast before, but she was doing a tarot reading and we kind of were going through the thing. And I said, yeah, I get that, like I'm responsible for where my thoughts go and that I don't have to choose this thought loop. Like I get that. But what happens when like I wasn't even consciously trying to think of it? The thought's just there. Now what? Like, I was just kind of in this loop around the loops. And she looked at me and she said, oh, well, you can just say stop, clear, delete. And then replace it with something that you do believe to be true. And I was like, huh. And I started doing that. And sometimes it felt like I was doing it every 30 seconds. And then there would be months where I didn't have to say it at all. And it's something about that feels similar to what you're saying, in that you're seeing what you no longer want to be congruent with and speaking what it is that you're aligning with now.
Yes. And when I talk about a statement, it's because the file is open and I'm choosing with your system very particular words that are needed.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so much of an affirmation.
Okay.
Those have their place, but it's not the same thing. Yeah, that's what I have to say there. Hit me with the hard questions.
Well, I guess I was waiting till the end. I will, I don't even know quite yet what the question's going to be, but there's something that I do want to talk through with you and get your perspective on at the very least. So I would say in the last month, it's been in my field, and then the last 2 weeks, it's been like, okay, we need to get this down. And the last week, I've actually been making a list of all of the things that I want to talk to you about over however long I know you. And what's been interesting for me is since the last time that we worked together, I've been really observing my thought processes a lot more. and observing other stuff that has seemingly nothing to do with what we talked about, that I'm seeing stuff that applies. Let's just put it that way. And all of a sudden, I feel like I'm almost being flooded with so much to look at from this kind of different perspective. And I will be honest and say there are moments where I kind of want to stay in, not that I want more downward momentum, but there's something about like I don't want to necessarily get rid of this that comes up. An example being, I just found the documentary show Shiny Happy People. I don't know if you've heard of it. There's 2 seasons. The first one is on the Duggar family, and the second one is on Teen Mania and A Quiet Fire. Both of these things are like huge in the fundamentalist Christian community, especially if you were a millennial growing up in that community, which I was. And so watching these stories of these people who are saying like what really happened, and I'm like, yes, that was my whole fucking life. Like I know that really happened. And so I watch these things, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to let go of the fact that that's fucked. Like that shouldn't be happening. And I know that I'm not necessarily being asked to let go of that. But sometimes when I'm presented with, okay, so there was a big emotion that came through as I'm watching, lots of big emotions coming through as I'm watching this show. I'm like, okay, so there's something here to be looked at because it's bringing up some very big emotions for me.
Symptoms.
Right. So there's something there. And I'm like, yeah, there's something there. And in the moment, I'm like, I don't want to hear that what I'm feeling in any way is like lower vibrational. You know what I mean? Like there's a part of me when I'm in that's like, yeah, fuck love and light. Bring me my machete and let's cut some people down. And I'm wondering what comes up for you as I say that.
What's your I want to ask you what's your definition of love and light, because I'll call out most of the New Age spiritual community that uses all love and light as a way of bypassing their shit.
Right.
Love isn't fluffy and soft.
I would agree with that. Yeah. I think when I say fuck love and light, I mean the bypassing side of it, not the not the truth of it.
Love and truth being intricately connected.
Right.
Love is what animates, what truth stabilizes. Yeah. There's a TikTok there, right? Because I also heard you say you want to take out the machete. Like, okay, what's springing up in you? There's healing processes available to you. You do have a letting go. I can feel it. You're ready to let go of thinking the church wronged you.
I have already let go of that.
Are you ready to?
Oh, I was like, really? That's news. Yeah, so that's exactly what I'm saying. It's like I don't know that I am because then so I've been asking myself, well, what does it mean if I let go of saying that the church wronged me? Like,
I'm not suggesting that there are definitely things that have been done in organized religion that has been inaccurate and more. I'm talking about for you and your system. Because if you play in that TikTok, you are the victim. So you're ready to let go of thinking that the church wronged you.
Yes. Parts of me are saying yes. The parts of me that don't want to be identified with being a victim are saying yes. And the parts of me that are saying, but this was fucked, are also like, how, is there a way for there to be both?
Yeah, that it was fucked. Absolutely. Yeah, that people who have done things harmfully, detrimentally, intentfully or not, need to own their shit and their side of the equation. Period. And if they don't, they will continue in their unresolution and their pain and their absence and their dysfunction. But on your side of the equation, if you want to move towards greater harmony, function, coherence, availability to love and truth, then you can't play at that level anymore. No one who wants what I just said can. You got to be able to hold both. But yeah, there's fucked up shit happening. And there is a level of that. There are lower structures, there are lower levels. Where do you want to operate at? I can say for myself, that meant coming to owning everything I've ever done, the ripple effects of all of my decisions, even those made in ignorance. Because in order to know peace, you must be able to stand unmoving in everything you've ever done and participated in. And if a person has been in looping, unresolved patterns of even the most horrific things, are they willing to look at where they've participated in such things throughout their long arc? That's the hard, gritty healing work. And it requires the revealing and looking at all the places within you, all the dark rooms. I talked about deconstructing and dismantling. It's taking down that stuff, not suppressing it, not compartmentalizing it anymore and looking away, but looking at it with love. What do I mean by this? Love, as in willing to look at it attentively and tend it undefendedly. Okay, yes, that's there. Okay, yes, I did that. I approach it with love and help and reveal. And it's a path of healing. So that's what I'm talking about when I ask you the question, are you ready to let go of thinking that they wronged you?
Yeah, I mean, and I'm being really honest. Like, I don't know. There's a part of me that is saying yes, because I do want all of those things that you said. Like, I want to be living in truth and freedom and love, and I want to be fully and truly me. And in this moment, there's a part of me that's like, yeah, this feels a little victim blamey. Like, oh, she was asking for it because she wore that dress. I'm not, and that's not what you're saying. I'm not saying that that's what you're saying. But there's that part of me that feels like to say, yeah, I'm ready to let go of saying that they wronged me or harmed me. That there's a part of me that feels like by saying that, I'm saying, and I asked for it, which, I mean, this gets into some really big stuff.
Really big stuff. Yeah, my mentor would often say, a lot of it wasn't your fault. And that doesn't mean it's not your responsibility. to work
That I
through.
agree.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that.
And that's what I would get at here. There's a bit of a conflation happening, understandably. And this is where healing isn't a one-time thing. It's not a one-night thing. It's not a one-session thing. It's not one ceremony. It's an unwinding. Many processes here. All good. It's probably more of a private thing anyway. And this is where we start getting into like the nitty-gritty of what's going on in you as an individual here.
Which I think is actually great for listeners and viewers to see. Like, this is where more than likely, at least some of my next session with Ana is going to go. and I'm really grateful actually that this came up so that people could get a sense of this can get really deep really fast. And yeah, and that's not a good or bad thing. It's simply what can be.
Well, I am always attuning into what's right and beneficial for the field, and it would not be helpful for me to go there outside of a private session. I don't know why. I'm not
And
telling the people
that's
here, but trusting the intelligence right now. Oh, perhaps if there's anything else you wanted to ask or wrap up or something.
um, I am curious if people want to work with you. Are you open to me having a link for you in the show notes where they can connect with you? Um, and if not, that's okay too.
Yeah, I would love to say yes. And at this point, my clientele is full. What you could do is put my email address and I can give that to you, and people can reach out to me that way because things can open up. And I say it right here. It's my first name, Ana, A-N-A, at energywithana.com. Energy, ENERGYWITH, Ana.com. Perfect. Yeah, I know that got deep real quick at the end
I
there.
got the.
From the
No,
beginning, I don't really do surface.
yeah. No, no. I don't think anybody listening to this podcast is thinking, oh, yeah, this is just going to be a surfacey level conversation. That's kind of never what it is. But yes, it did get very deep at the end there. And I'm so grateful for you going there with me and for everything that we talked about today. And you and your work, I'm just really, really grateful that you're in my life. Queridas, we made it to one of my favorite parts of each episode, the moment of flow. I love poetry, I love words and rhythm, and how when you mix the two, you get into a beautiful state of flow. And so I want to leave you with that at the end of each episode. So here it is, your moment of flow. Ask the precise question to the best deliverer of that truth. And then receive the answer. Receiving is an active state, actively digesting and metabolizing what has been given form. Find the resolution. There is an end to the healing map. That X, that spot of wholeness, begins the expansion that the deepest parts of you craves. A question for your greater intelligence to start. What joy, what thrill is possible when I let go of my grip of shoulds?